Welcome to The Fitterist Show with your host, Christopher Allen, where we explore the art of mind and body conditioning. Welcome to today's show, and we're going to talk a little bit about habits, specifically how to develop and sustain habits, because most successful people underscore the importance and impact of habits on their life, and probably with good reason. Habits are the underpinning of what you do, who you are, and who you can become. With the right habits, you're more efficient, more effective, and more strategic about the thoughts and actions that lead you toward your goals. And you tend to show up day in and day out regardless of your current motivation level. You'll have a positive impact and influence on those around you as you lead with great habits and by example. And you become more efficient, again, more effective, allowing you to have more productive days and be more consistent with that productivity. And while developing habits, you cultivate a self-discipline that allows you to be more intentional. And the foundation of healthy habits drives benefits in your life both today and far into the future. So first, let's start out with, what is a habit? Now, the dictionary defines it as a settled, regular tendency or practice, especially one that's hard to give up. But really, a habit is a learned solution to the problems that you repeatedly face throughout your life. And research has shown that up to 40% of our daily actions can be habits, actions that we do automatically. And this allows the brain to focus on other higher order, more complex thinking. So habits certainly have a place in one's life. They can help you be more efficient and beneficial, or they can be negative and present challenges to overcome and reprogram. And the smaller the habit, the easier it is to incorporate into your life. Now, experts in this area include Charles Duhigg, who wrote the book The Power of Habit, and James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits. So if you're interested in learning more in depth, and I'll provide links in the show notes on the website, I would encourage and recommend both of those books to get more of an insight into kind of the behavioral psychology of habits. So let's take a look at what comprises a habit. What are the elements of a habit? And this research is based out of a number of studies done by MIT in the 1990s, where they concluded that every habit consists of 3 different elements. The first element of a habit is what's called a trigger. And this is what tells your brain to go into automatic mode and which habit to use. A trigger can be anything in our environment which our brains associate with habit. And these contextual factors, such as where we are, who we're with, and what just happened, have a very powerful but invisible effect upon our behavior. Every time a trigger precedes a habit, the stronger the formation of the link between the habit and the trigger. And the stronger that bond, the stronger the habit becomes. So some examples of triggers include things like waking up, commuting to work, feeling stressed, getting into bed. Those are just 4 examples of triggers. The second element of habit is the behavior or response. And this is the action that we perform as a result of the trigger. This can be an emotional, it can be a mental, it could be a physical behavior that follows the trigger. So some examples of responses to a trigger include drinking coffee and reading the newspaper, checking social media, eating compulsively, or watching TV for hours. And I'll show you some of these examples as we go forward. The third element of a habit is the reward. And this is important because it drives the repeated behavior. It closes the feedback loop, and this is what we really want. This is the reason that you're motivated to do the behavior. So it's a positive stimulus which helps your brain figure out if this particular association is worth remembering for the future. So as an example, the reward might be meeting more people and building more relationships, where the behavior might be introducing myself to more people. So obviously what you want is for the trigger and the reward to become intertwined in a positive habit until a powerful sense of anticipation emerges, so your brain begins to crave the reward, and eventually a habit is formed. And when a habit emerges, your brain stops fully participating in decision making, and the pattern then starts to unfold automatically. So some examples of rewards could be less stress, feeling of sense of accomplishment, or in my example, socialization. So craving is what makes the triggers and rewards work. As we associate those triggers with certain rewards, a subconscious craving emerges in our brain, and that craving, which is the anticipation of the reward, powers this habit loop. So those are the three elements of a habit. Again, just recapping: first element, trigger; second element, the response or the behavior; and the third element is the reward. So once you have an understanding of the elements of a habit, let's turn our attention toward developing a habit. Because once you understand the elements of a habit loop, you can begin to first understand the triggers that are currently driving habits that you'd like to change and or replace. So the key in the process is changing and replacing the behavior in response to the trigger to still deliver the desired reward. So let's look at an example. Let's say that every day around 10 a.m., you walk across the street with a colleague to get a venti double caramel ribbon crunch mocha whipped frappuccino. And there is a 4-step process to kind of ingrain and change behavior. So step 1, identify the behavior that you want to change. So in this example, the behavior is going to get a frappuccino every morning. Now the question is, what's triggering this behavior? Are you thirsty? Are you bored? Do you need a break before tackling a work project? Do you just want to talk to somebody? So that's step 1, identifying the behavior. Step 2 is start to experiment with rewards. So understand what craving is driving the behavior. And also take a look at what is the reward. Are you craving caffeine? Are you looking for a break from work? Are you looking to socialize with coworkers? Are you looking for energy comes from the sugar rush from the drink? So to better understand the craving that is driving a behavior, it's worth trying to experiment a little bit with different rewards. So continuing our example, maybe on the first day of your experiment, you might try going outside and walking around the block with a colleague. So no frappuccino, and then going back to work. Maybe the next day, on day 2, you go outside, you buy an iced coffee and a muffin, but take them back to your desk and eat them at work. Maybe on day 3, you go with a colleague and just get an iced coffee. Maybe on the next day, you get a coffee from the communal kitchen and drink it while conversing with colleagues in the office. So you get the idea. It's just changing the rewards associated with the behavior. So as you experiment, you can start to understand which craving is driving the behavior. Is it the need to get out of the office? The need to socialize with colleagues? Are you just thirsty? Are you looking for a sugar or caffeine rush? Do you just need a break from work? That is, as you look for patterns while experimenting with different rewards, you can start to identify what you're actually craving, which of course is critical in redesigning the habit. So in this example, let's say you determine that after experimenting with a number of these different rewards for a while, you determine that after walking and talking with a colleague without buying anything, you find it easy to go back to work. Then it's much more likely that a break and socialization is what your habit is seeking to satisfy. Step 3 in developing a new habit is really around isolating the trigger. So when we look at triggers, habitual triggers generally fit into one of 5 categories. And those categories are location, time, emotional state, other people, and immediately preceding action. So let's go through each one of those in a little bit more detail. So location, the environment, is probably one of the most powerful driver of mindless habits and also the least recognized, right? In many cases, the habits and behaviors are simply a response to the environment that surrounds us. And one theory, of course, is that we just mentally assign habits to a particular location. So to give you an example, here's one from my life. When I arrive at the gym, so it's a location-based trigger, I always do abs, stretching, and warm-up in the same area of the gym. The location in the gym, it's a simple habit cue that helps prompt my pre-workout routine. Even when I might not be too excited about working out, that location-based trigger gets me into state and into the mindset of working out. The second category of triggers is time. That's probably one of the most easiest to understand and probably the most common ways to trigger a new habit. This could be something as simple as when I wake up in the morning, I brush my teeth. Third category is emotional state. And this is a common cue, unfortunately, for a lot of poor habits. As an example, you may have a habit of eating when you feel depressed, or you may default to online shopping when you feel bored. And this emotional state of depression or boredom are often triggers for these negative habits. Fourth category of habit triggers is other people. It's probably no surprise to you that the people you surround yourself with can play a role in your habits and behaviors. So the best way to make use of this information is surround yourself with people that have the habits that you want to have yourself. Fifth category is immediately preceding action. This is an interesting one because many habits are a response to something else that happens in your life. So your phone buzzes, you immediately pick it up to check the latest news alert or text message. The little notification bar lights up on another social media app or Facebook, and so you click it to see what happened, who posted what, right? These are examples of habits that are just triggered by a preceding event. You get conditioned to, when my phone buzzes, I pick it up and check. And the fourth step for developing a habit is to have a plan. So once you figured out your habit loop, you've identified kind of the reward driving your behavior, what the trigger is, and what the behavior or routine is itself, you can start to shift the behavior. You can change to a better routine by planning for the trigger and consciously choosing a behavior that delivers the reward that you're craving. So, if a habit is a formula and our brain follows like a programming language, when I see trigger, I do this behavior in order to get this reward. It's a little bit like reprogramming and developing a master plan. So in our example, a plan might be at 10 a.m. each workday, I will take a break and talk with a colleague for 10 to 15 minutes. The more specific the trigger, in this case, we're using time, but the more specific the trigger and the more immediately actionable the behavior is, the better. So just to give you another example, this is a plan that I've used most of my life, and that is when I leave work, I will change into my workout gear and then drive directly to the gym to work out. Now, to make it easier, I would pack my gym bag each night and physically take it to work each day, so I would have a visual cue, my gym bag, sitting on my office floor all day, knowing that when I hit that trigger, when it's time to leave work, the behavior and the response is basically automatic. Now, it's going to take time. It's going to take clearly patience to reprogram a habit, generally one that's been a long-standing one. The longer you've been doing it, the longer it'll take to substitute and reprogram, and you're going to slip up from time to time, and all that's okay. But as you make progress, the behavior will be more and more automatic as you consciously recognize the trigger that drives the behavior and the subsequent reward. And the easier you can make it, like the example of my gym bag on my office floor, that persistent visual reminder that when I hit the trigger, I know what to do, the easier it's going to be. Another tip worth mentioning is something called habit stacking. And this is a powerful strategy you can use to build new habits by identifying a current habit that you're already doing and then stack a new behavior on top of that habit. So instead of attempting to attach a new habit to one of those 5 categories, location, time, emotional state, other people, immediately preceding action, you can pair it with an existing habit. So the plan for a stacked habit might look like, after I eat breakfast each morning, I will meditate for 10 minutes. Or as soon as my alarm goes off in the morning, I will put my shoes on that are sitting beside my bed and go do my fasted cardio on the treadmill for 30 minutes. Again, the reason for habit stacking and the reason it works so well is that your current habits are already built into your brain. You have patterns and behaviors that have been strengthened over the years. So by linking new habits to a cycle that you're already doing automatically, you make it much more likely that you'll stick to the new behavior. And once you've mastered this basic structure, then you can start like Legos to build blocks on top of one another. You can begin to create larger stacks by chaining some of those smaller habits together. This allows you to take advantage of natural momentum from stacked habits, from one behavior leading into the next. So an example, as soon as my alarm goes off in the morning, I will put my shoes on beside my bed and do fasted cardio on the treadmill for 30 minutes. After I finish my fasted cardio each morning, I will eat a healthy breakfast. And after I finish my healthy breakfast each morning, I will meditate for 10 minutes. So you can see, as you stack those behaviors and stack those habits on top of one another, you've got what cascades into a full routine, habit routine of stacked habits that can fuel your entire day. Key here is to select the appropriate trigger, though. That's the initial thing that is very specific, highly actionable, and the most powerful outcomes come over time, right? You get the compounding effect as you get more sophisticated and form more habit stacks. You get that compounding effect that consistency, discipline, and patience bring to these positive habits. Just a couple of keys to changing existing or developing new habits. One, start with some small expectations. Build what's kind of that muscle memory of completing routines, completing the behavior, and then adding more tasks once you've been consistent for a healthy period of time. And build those routines around small habits to start with. Small wins, build momentum, reinforce your ability to remember and complete them. And remember that it generally takes, according to the research, between maybe 3 to 8 weeks to create a new habit. Obviously, more difficult and complex habits can take longer to form, so focus on repetition. It's key for the first few weeks when building that habit stack. And it's critical that you stick to the routine. Even if you might skip 1 or 2 actions, consistency is more important than anything else. Repetition builds that muscle memory and reinforces that behavior between the trigger, the behavior, and the reward. And when you complete the routine often enough, it just becomes an ingrained part of your daily life, like brushing your teeth. So, in summary, nothing worth accomplishing happens overnight. We all know that it's not about what you do once in a while. It's about what you do daily, consistently, habitually. And since habits are whatever activity you do consistently, up to 40, maybe 50% of our daily actions, you get to continue to accomplish goals consistently. Be your best self for both you and those around you while increasing the overall quality of your life. So developing the right habits and making them stick will help you reach your goals, help you become the person that you most want to be. They'll influence people around you and increase the overall quality of your life, where you get to reap lifelong benefits. Habits are a powerful tool that help you create and enhance your life. With that, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen to The Fitterist Show. You can follow us on Instagram at FitteristMindBody and on Twitter at FitteristMind. If you enjoyed this episode, please send it to a friend or subscribe to make sure you don't miss any future episodes of The Fitterist Show. My name is Christopher Allen, and make it a magical day.